Hi, I'm Steve Plage, and I'll be your host for this segment of Voices from the Village. Tonight we'll be talking about the ongoing work stoppage at the Stationary Engineers Local 39, now underway at Dominican Hospital. Local 39 serves 4 hospitals, and the 15 engineers at Dominican who have been working under an expired contract since July 1, 2011, have been on strike since October 1st after trying unsuccessfully to negotiate with the hospital. Their primary concern is to have a guaranteed 40-hour work week, as they had on their old contract. Engineers at 4 Dignity Healthcare hospitals in the Bay Area voted to strike after rejecting what was called the employer's last, best, and final offer. That offer mandated the engineers take a 0% increase for an entire year. Although the union has offered to enter into binding arbitration, Dignity Health has declined that offer. For a little background and to frame our conversation, the Stationary Engineers Union includes a range of jobs, which include operating and maintaining equipment in buildings such as boilers, pumps, fans, compressors, refrigeration and air conditioning units, and systems, motors, automated controls, and electrical apparatus, just to name a few. Engineers are responsible for the safe, efficient operation of all systems under their control. They make regular rounds of equipment areas, reading meters and gauges, listening to the machinery, and adjusting the controls as required. Biomed equipment technicians test and repair medical equipment that can be found in hospitals or surroundings. Some of the equipment that falls under the scope of a biomed technician would be electrocardiographs, x-ray machines, electroencephalographs, sterilizers, operating room lamps and tables, and diathermy machines. It's quite a bit. We'll be talking much more about the work and support provided by these skilled workers. But from this brief presentation, I think you can see how the quality of care in our local hospitals is profoundly affected by the work of the stationary engineers. Joining me for tonight's discussion are 2 people who are playing key roles in the struggle for workers' rights. First, let me introduce Jeff Ajlouni. Jeff Ajlouni, thank you, who is the Station Engineer Local 39 Business Representative.
Yes.
And Nora Hochman. Nora Hochman, a well-known and really celebrated, as far as I'm concerned, union engineer and labor organizer in town. Jeff, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work as business representative for Local 39.
Well, I'm a middle-aged guy who's been working as an engineer for most of my adult life. I represent the engineers and biomedical engineers over at Dominican Hospital, amongst other locations throughout the Bay Area. I've been a union rep for the last 6 years and have been a strong advocate of labor and pushing forward the labor movement and working towards the goals of individual employee rights. We are particularly in this situation here with Dominican Hospital due to issues among the contract. We've been trying to work towards getting a successor agreement in place at Dominican Hospital for quite some time now, to no avail. And back in September 30th of this year, my bargaining unit unanimously chose to reject the employer's last, best, and final offer. And we've been on the street since October 1, 2013, trying to get a resolution to this.
Okay. And Nora, you and I have done some work together over time, and I know that you have been a long-time labor organizer and union representative. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, as you mentioned, I've worked for various labor unions for a little over 20 years or so locally, and right now find myself wanting to, along with the People's Democratic Club, participate in any way that we can with this strike, because this is a very long strike. In modern times, this is a strike with no end. There's not something at the end of any given day or week. So I'm just doing what most trade unionists do, which is join picket lines wherever they are in our communities.
And Jeff, tell us a little bit about kind of the structure of the strike out there, the nature of it, how you are taking shifts and manning the various things out there, and really putting out to the public the fact that this is a work stoppage, it's ongoing.
Well, we're out there every day from what I would call pretty much sunrise to sunset, although it's extended hours. We're out there 12 hours a day from 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening. We're out there with our group. I have 15 engineers that represent Dominican Hospital. So we do run shifts to where we have coverage on the line at all times. Obviously, we're there 7 days a week, so it becomes a little difficult when it comes to family life and individuals trying to participate in that. But these guys are very, reserved in their opinion, and they want to push forward and get themselves a deal that makes sense, that's competitive with the surrounding market for stationary engineers. We try to get these guys, the passer buyers, as I would say, to wave, to engage us. We're looking for any support from any organization that's willing to come out and support these engineers out there, and labor rights for all.
Yeah. And I did notice one thing as I was reading through the literature. Are the wages and salaries down here competitive with, say, San Francisco, the people who are working up there? Because I noticed that the wage scale up there seemed to be relatively modest.
Upon the expiration of the contract back in 2011, the wage rates were competitive with the Bay Area. Our philosophy is basically that an engineer is an engineer, no matter whether he lives in Santa Cruz or San Francisco. They're all well-trained, well-skilled individuals.
I should say. Yeah.
They've come. Some of them come through our apprenticeship program. Most all of them have access to our training department. We have one of the best training centers in the country, and these guys all should command equal pay across the board. So that's kind of where our philosophy is there.
And I know, Laura, with your work with the People's Democratic Club, and you had Jeff over recently to make a presentation. So the People's Democratic Club is really very much engaged in this struggle. You tell us a little bit more about what they're doing and how they hope to support Local 39.
Right. Well, worth saying for viewers that the way the Democratic Party is kind of structured is there's a central Democratic Party in every community, and then many communities organize individual clubs, right? In Santa Cruz County, there are at least 3 other clubs in addition to the Central Democratic Committee, and they all kind of engage through the Central Committee to the state Democratic Party. The People's Democratic Club is the oldest club in existence in addition to the Central Committee. It's now probably 30 or 35 years old. And it always has been and continues to be the most progressive arm of the local Democratic Club. So when the strike became obvious to us, visibly, right, there are many people involved in club activities that are longtime trade unionists and longtime labor sympathizers. Many of them are union members themselves, many club members, and certainly wanted to get out and support the strikers because, like workers everywhere, there are neighbors, there are friends, there are family members. So it's our hospital and it's where we seek services, and it matters to us that these workers are, that they go back to work. So we've kind of adopted an afternoon. We picket as a club.
Wonderful.
Every Wednesday from 3 to 5. That's a long stretch of Soquel Drive where the hospital is located. And occasionally we, pump up that picket line with, many, many more people. We're encouraging people to join us because, as Jeff said, there are only 15 workers at the Dominican site.
Right.
And there's a lot of pavement to be covered, and it's one way that community members can show that they care about individual workers.
The part of the landscape of this, I think, is the negotiations you're involved with now, and I think people would be interested to know who's on the other side of the bargaining table. Who is Dignity Health? What is their position? And what do you think you'll be able to, not substantively, of course, because you really can't discuss the details of your negotiations, but how is your relationship, your bargaining relationship with them as this large organization?
Well, traditionally, to give you a little history here, Dignity Health is the parent company here of these 4 hospitals. Prior to Dignity's insertion into the equation, we were dealing with Catholic Healthcare West.
Okay.
Traditionally, it was a reasonable bargain, and negotiations generally went smooth. I mean, what are negotiations? generally two parties walking away equally unhappy when we try to get to a deal here.
Yes, of course.
But something is agreed to and ratified by membership and makes sense moving forward. So in the past, it's always been pretty decent to proceed with the negotiations. We ran into a stumbling block because we're dealing with what I believe personally a large corporate entity that's trying to, I'm not going to say break the backs of workers out there, but they're trying to force their will to exercise more profits, better pocketbooks, better numbers when it comes to their stock and their equation there. So that's a little difficult on that side when you're dealing
And not
with
unusual, I think, in this world, and Nora might agree that the corporate society that we're living in now seems to be trying to wrest control of anything having to do with the business operation from the workers. They just don't feel like they want to be fair with the workers. They feel like they've got all the power. You see, for instance, CEOs getting huge compensation packages while cost of living increases aren't even given to the workers. And Nora, tell us more about that.
So this is, you know, in many ways what Dignity as the parent corporation is doing is very consistent with how the corporate sector treats workers in every industry, whether it's hotels. We're certainly seeing evidence of it in fast food with, you know, fast food strikes taking place with workers recently struggling for a better wage. And
Walmart was another
unions.
one, yeah.
Walmart was another one. Will continue to be another one.
Yes, absolutely.
So, you know, Dignity is just another corporation in a long list of corporations that places, whether it's stockholder profit or, in the case of Dignity, individual CEO profit, over, I mean, these are 65 workers in a 4-hospital system. So we're not talking about a whole lot of money, even if the union's demands were crazy wild high. I don't know what they are. I can't imagine that they're crazy wild high. But even if they were, 65 workers can't cost very much, especially when you have a CEO who's earning about $500,000 a month.
That's what I see here, the $3.8 million compensation package.
Right.
Yeah.
So his compensation package, he's doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing
he's
fine.
not hurting at
Right,
all.
exactly.
And there are 15 guys walking the pavement, you know, as Jeff says, dawn to dusk. You know, it kind of baffles the mind how somebody can earn what he's earning and have the corporation that he works for simply refuse to come back to the bargaining table and talk to workers, but that's what they've done.
And as I was reading some of the literature to get some information here, there are 80 members of Local 39, is that correct?
Between the 4 Dignity hospitals, there's 60 members
Okay,
that
60,
are currently
and 15 are on strike here, and then you have the 45 brother and sister locals up
at the other 3
picketing
Bay Area
places.
hospitals.
Yeah.
We have Sequoia Hospital, St. Francis, and St. Mary's are the other 3 hospitals, along with Dominican, that have chosen to unanimously reject the employer's last.
A lot of
best and
named
final offer.
saints, but not much saint-like behavior.
Not much saint-like behavior.
Now, have you been getting support from other unions? For instance, I know that recently there was a student strike up at UCSC, and I'm a bus rider. So our bus operators here would not cross that picket line up there. So there was that kind of solidarity with them, which I thought was wonderful and frankly kind of unexpected. I should have expected more, of course, but it was wonderful to see that, you know, from my perspective. Are you getting some support from other unions?
Yes, we are. It's a sanctioned strike by the Central Labor Council. Building Trades is on board. We have the Teamsters that aren't willing to cross, make deliveries. As you mentioned, the bus drivers, they're up and down SoCal,
great.
and they're honking their horn, and they're showing up their support. Most of the trades have not crossed. We do have a few that have crossed that line. For the most part, they are, you know, non-union shops. But we had a few despicable shops that chose to cross the picket line. You know, we'll try to address that as we move forward.
And let me remind our viewers that this is a live show, so if you'd like to call us at 425-8844, that's 425-8844, and ask either one of my guests a question, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer. I know that, Nora, maybe you can speak to this. One of the inequities, I think, of labor negotiations these days is that some labor unions have written into their contracts policy that they can't support or can't, you know, it'll void part of their contract if they join into another strike or cross a picket line or something. That is true?
For some unions have language now, like in the last 15 or 20 years, where unions have agreed that they will not strike or in any way withhold their labor during the term of their contract.
Right.
So, you know, kind of the deal is the employer agrees not to lock workers out if there's a dispute, and the union agrees not to go on strike if there's a dispute for the term of the contract. So that means, you know, what used to happen historically in America were sympathy strikes. You know, the old union slogan, an injustice to one is an injustice to all. Unions used to go on strike just because other unions struck.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore. There are other creative ways that labor unions within the hospital, for example, is Service Employees International Union, as well as the California Nurses Association. You know, sometimes here and there, individual members of those unions will come out on breaks and lunch periods and walk the picket line for a little while.
And they're permitted by the terms of their particular
You can do whatever you want on your break and lunchtime. Still, that might be a right that we could see diminish. I don't know.
Well,
but when you're on your lunch period, you're on your own
It
time.
seems to me a very insidious way of breaking solidarity amongst
That's exactly
workers, you know,
what it
and
is.
that's really what it's designed to do.
It's not only insidious that the employers demanded it; it's insidious that the unions, you know, historically have agreed to this.
One of the questions that I had and was a concern to me was that during the period of this work stoppage, is there any problem with compliance with state and county code, health and safety code regulations?
Well, I'm sure there's some deficiencies that are going on in that hospital, and there's been some failures. I'm sure they're out of compliance on a couple of different issues, and that's where you run into scenarios where you wonder where a CEO is making these types of decisions to, you know, take away the services that they provide for the community. I wouldn't feel too comfortable personally wanting to be drawn into their ER for whatever reason.
No, certainly not.
I know they've had some issues. I know there's been some failed equipment. When you talk about a 2+ month strike, you're talking about several issues that aren't being combated on a normal day-to-day basis. Their preventative maintenance programs aren't being addressed. They're probably falling out of compliance when it comes to different things. I've heard through people coming in and out of the hospitals explaining the fact that they can't maintain temperatures in the hospital itself, the OR rooms, you know, the intensive care, labor and delivery, all having challenges inside the hospital itself. So you are selling your community short as a CEO if you continue to go on with this type of labor dispute.
So it seems like there's a real impact on patient care then.
There's an absolute impact on patient care.
Now, I'm really interested in that, just because I believe that we should maintain a quality of care in our hospitals and medical facilities, and that's just a responsibility we all have, to the society. It's part of our societal contract. Give me an idea of what the average day is for the stationary engineer or the biomed technician, the things that they have to do that are their responsibility to kind of keep this going.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's a life safety issue. When you talk about the fire life safety system and the facility itself, they need to make sure that it's functional on a day-to-day basis. Anything goes wrong with that, they need to, be as aggressive as they can to get that repaired and fixed. They have, normal preventative maintenance on every piece of equipment in that building. From the air conditioning units to the life safety systems to the boilers to the electrical systems. They need to make sure that infrastructure is sound and continues to be sound. The compliance-related issues when it comes to that is doing that paperwork and making sure that they do their standard tests, their functions, and their preventative maintenance. When they fail to do that, obviously you're going to get some issues with comfort cooling situations, humidity control in these rooms, and that's where you get your issues.
Yeah, well, I was particularly concerned as I was going through the introduction, as I was kind of writing the introduction, not having known very much about biomed technicians and the kinds of very sophisticated medical equipment that they are maintaining, over time. And I'm wondering, how does this, very essential medical life-saving, medical technology equipment, is it maintained and continue to function whilst the biomed technicians are on strike?
I can't answer that question. I believe there are replacement workers inside there. I'm not sure if they are maintaining that correctly, Steve. I couldn't tell you. I would, hinder to guess that it's probably not being addressed as it should. But that would be my opinion, and the hospital would probably have their own opinion on that.
Nora, your comment on that?
Well, I just think as a healthcare consumer and as a potential patient at any moment, when I hear of the skill and expertise that a member of stationary engineers has, knowing they go through apprenticeship training, knowing that they're certified prior to placement. I know what happens in strike situations when particularly hospitals call in temporary or scab workers. They don't stop to check and verify skill level and level of training and expertise. So if I was really being kind of silly and selfish, I would like this strike to end so that I could feel secure about myself and my family and friends knowing they could head into Dominican with skilled workers maintaining pretty vital equipment. I mean, this isn't just lights going on and off.
And I think that it's ironic to me where the overarching issues of the day are affordable health care and whether or not people are insured to be able to access health care when they need to, that when they get to that facility, that quality of health care may not exist because the stationary engineers, the biomed technicians are not getting the fair wage that they need just to be on the job or perform this essential
They're not
skill.
even at work.
Yeah.
I think that's what the community has to maybe think about a little bit, is those skilled technicians in every classification that a Local 39 member occupies, they're not at work. So whoever is at work on an occasional basis or however Dominican has chosen to staff these jobs right now, these are not people who, we just don't know.
I suspect it's probably not Dr. Jones, the neurosurgeon, who is tinkering with the electroencephalogram to make sure that it's working
because Dr.
as they're
Jones might be
strapping it
trained
to my
in something
chest.
else.
You never know these days, Steve, because
Just
I
crazy.
guarantee you the maintenance workers that they do, or these replacement workers that they do have in there, are not qualified and they don't know.
Now,
what
is
they're
there
doing.
a larger national organization for stationary engineers?
We are nationwide, and we go into Canada. The International Union of Operating Engineers represents quite a few throughout the United States and Canada. We also, there's a stationary side of us, and there's a hoisting and portable side of us. The hoisting
tell us a little bit about that.
The hoisting and portable side of us is the operators that operate the heavy equipment out in normal construction industry on the freeways. Doing all the large work on these expansions and whatnot.
The heavy equipment
all the
operators.
crane operators
Okay.
when they're erecting these buildings. All that hoisting equipment is all part of our international. It's a different local here in Northern California. But as I said, we're stationary there, the hoisting and portable side.
Are you in contact with the brother and sister members who are at the other facilities picketing as well, and kind of getting a learning process from one another about how things are going?
Yeah, we're communicating well with one another. We have strike rallies at all the various sites. We kind of do a little revolving strike rally in different times. As Nora said, we tend to, pick Wednesday as the best day for us at Dominican, but there's other days at the other different sites. But being in a less impacted area when it comes to population, it's a little more difficult to get the muster up the support that we need here locally. It's a little easier for us to do that in San Francisco because of the fact that we control just about every building, hotel, and hospital in that area. So
we have a question from the studio audience. Betsy, please.
Hi, this is more of a comment. I just wanted to make an appeal to people out there to do what you can to support this union because it's a small union, so I think they can get away with it because it's a small union, and these are people who are people don't even know that these people are working there. They're positions that we rely on, but we don't know they're there. So, the corporations might think, well, this is an easy one to go after because they make pretty good salaries. They're not going to get a lot of sympathy, and nobody knows they're around anyway. But but we all need to be together on this, and especially if there's union members out there, you know, we're all together on this. We're all members of unions, and we need to keep the union strong. And I'm just guessing that a way to maybe help you is to come out there and just be with you. Maybe do you need like food or things like that? People can bring for you, or mostly just support? Is there any special things that people can do to help support this
A
strike?
very good question, Jeff.
Anything helps, to tell you the truth. Food's always nice. You know, as you might think, when we're being out on a strike, you're not bringing in the type of income that you would normally be bringing in. So you're starting to, you know, catch up to these guys. You got a penny pinch. There's no question about it. So. Any type of support, I mean, the more the merrier when it comes to the general population of coming out and walking the picket line with us. Food's nice. There was a couple of young ladies that dropped off some amazing soup the other day, which was very appreciated by the group. And a little uplifting, to tell you the truth.
And I think that Nora made the point earlier that by modern standards, this is a fairly long-standing strike.
Yeah.
So you folks have been out there since October 1. That's a lot of time to be out there, and without compensation, you know, and with, you know, whatever sort you can get. And so it's important for people to understand that this is continuing to be a concern of everyone who wants to support workers' rights.
Correct.
Yeah, this gets, just so people understand, you know, when you hit the 2 or 2.5 month mark of a strike, things get very serious. Most people don't know that when a worker is on strike, they're not eligible to collect unemployment benefits. So, excuse me, if and where a union might pay strike benefits per day for walking the picket line, and I'm sure stationary engineers does, it's very modest.
Of course,
and
yeah.
it doesn't compare at all to wages. So you just imagine going from, you know, one day to the next. You know exactly when your last paycheck was, and you have no idea when your next paycheck is. There's nothing coming in. So, you know, all your costs continue. You don't get to tell PG&E you're on strike and, you know, can you hold off paying the light bill? So, you know, to the extent that people become aware of what a sacrifice it is, when a union fights over an issue, as Local 39 is, fighting to retain a guaranteed 40-hour work week, that is all of our issue.
Of course.
You know, we can't tolerate the erosion of a work week in this community being under 40 hours. You can barely live on 40 hours worth of pay in this town to begin with. But for Dignity Corporation to, you know, as a central feature of its negotiations, seek to eliminate the guaranteed 40-hour work week, that alone ought to cause people to think about joining the picket line, because when we have 40-hour work weeks and full-time work of community members, that means that money is going around the community. When that 40-hour week is eroded, there's just less money being spent. So we can't have a buy local, you know, feel-good program in Santa Cruz if we don't have people earning decent full-time work. So, you know, I would just say people, if they really think about going from one day to the next, income to no income, no unemployment benefits, 12 hours a day, walking a picket line for whatever the strike benefits are, 30, 40 bucks a day, you know, they're doing it for all of us.
And I think it's important for our viewers to remember, and for our community to understand, that this isn't a local issue.
Yes.
This is very much a local issue. It's about, you know, how you can level the compensation playing field between the corporate structure and the working class person, the worker.
Right.
And I think that everybody really, that resonates with the community, because we are a working class community in many respects, and it was a very expensive place to live. And so anybody can understand, you know, if they were to take half a week off, you know, what that would do in terms of being able to pay their rent, you know, to support their families, to do the things they have to do. And when you're taking all of your time to be on the picket lines, to, you know, to fight for the rights of your fellow workers, you know, that's something that everybody should understand and support in whatever ways they can.
That's right.
And we have to keep in mind that the members unanimously chose to take this position. I mean, their resolve is outstanding. even, you know, in the times after 2.5 months of no reasonable paycheck, they are receiving a strike benefit. But as Nora stated, it's nowhere near enough. So where these guys stand is the fact that, hey, they don't want anything different than any of their peers throughout the Bay Area. They're not asking for more, you know, and they're certainly not, you know, looking for less in the sense, but it's being mandated by their employer. And they're being pushed, and the current bargaining units in that hospital are also being pushed to, you know, mandate a flexible work week, and take a furlough day here or there, right. And it just circumvents the entire process of that 40-hour.
You know, there's one other connection here in terms of the community, and your observation that, you know, as we're having kind of a national conversation about health insurance, right? It's one thing to talk about health care, but when we talk about health insurance, the amount of money that this community delivers, one way or the other, to that corporation, it's the primary hospital. If we all went to Watsonville Hospital, which is a for-profit organization, although I think Dignity looks like a for-profit.
They're definitely a for-profit.
They behave like a for-profit.
Yeah, they do.
I mean,
It walks like a duck.
it is a duck.
Okay,
Quack,
it's a duck.
quack.
Right, but
No
between
question.
Covered California and the, you know, let's say 20 healthcare plans under Covered California, Medi-Cal, a variety of union health insurance and pension plans, you know, the majority of this community seeks health care through Dignity.
No question about it.
It's the third largest employer in this community as well. So, you know, people have the ability to kind of move this issue with their feet in a couple of ways, right? They can come out and walk the picket line, certainly. And that feels good for workers. And when you see it feel good for workers, you feel good knowing that you kind of lightened their load for the hour that you were there or a couple of hours. It all matters to workers, right? But the other way that people can vote or make their sentiment known is they can contact Dignity, they can do it locally, they can talk to people that they know that might work in administration there, they can leave notes at the reception desk asking that it be directed to administrative people. They can write letters to the editor. They can do all kinds of things. They can take their business to Watsonville Hospital until the strike is over,
And
for
we
that
have
matter.
something, when I was looking at this, you can call Dignity Healthcare CEO Lloyd Dean. And Lloyd, we're going to give you some phone calls at 415-438-5500. So anybody out there who wants to pick up the phone at some point in time tomorrow morning, anytime in the near future, and call Lloyd Dean, who is the CEO of Dignity Healthcare, and let them know your feelings about this. Jeff, I know you have to leave. You have another commitment. It's been wonderful having you here. Thank you for all of your work.
Thank you, Steve.
And the things that you're doing out there for the local and for the community, in fact, on this very important issue. Some contact information for you, for our viewers, before you leave?
I can be reached at 408-269-3939. Is our South Bay District office, and if I'm not in the office, please leave a message and I can get back to you as quick as possible. You can also try the San Francisco District office at 415-861-1135.
And it's Jeff Ajluni again, business representative for Local 39 of the Stationary Engineers. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
And as you go out, Nora and I are going to enjoy a YouTube video of your brother and sister engineers up in San Francisco for their long-standing challenge up there as well. So we'll be watching that, and then we'll look forward to seeing and talking to you very soon and supporting you in whatever way we can.
Thank you very much, Steve. Also, Nora, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll see you on the line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be a pleasure.
Come out of the building and stand with me. But I need almost all of them so they don't.
My name's Tim Bohan. I'm a shop steward here for Local 39 at St. Francis Memorial Hospital Engineering Department. And basically, I'm the strike captain since we've been on strike. We've been out here, this is starting our 9th week now. So I've been here, I've worked at St. Francis for 24 years in engineering. Probably almost the highest man in seniority except for our assistant chief engineer. But Yeah, and so it's been like a home for me here for 24 years. It's really hard to see this going on in my house.
So what is going on here?
Well, basically our contract ended September 30th, and Dignity Health refused to renew it. So October 1st, we voted to go out for a strike. They gave us our last, best, and final offer, which was far below the industry standard for wages and benefits. And so we voted to go out to strike. And basically all we're asking for is the same, similar contract to all the stationary engineers that work in Bay Area hospitals, the high-rises, and the hotels.
And what are they trying to take away?
Well, they're trying to freeze our wages for a year, which is really hard, but even that's not a stopping point. The most serious point with the stationary engineers is that, with the contract, is that they want to take away our guaranteed 40-hour work week. Now, that's a fundamental, benefit that we've been fighting for. They want to put in a provision in our contract. They call it a call-off provision, and that's in case that they say if the patient census goes down, they can tell an engineer to stay home. In other words,
they still have the same square footage of space and everything to cover.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why that argument there. Now, granted, that might hurt us, but it's really going to hurt the hospital because our work doesn't go away. We maintain all the mechanical systems in the hospital, all the utility systems, everything that keeps it running, heating, ventilating, air conditioning, boilers, but the critical systems like nurse call, fire alarm, the medical gas system, emergency power, we maintain, and we also we test them to make sure everything's operational. But in addition to that, you need to know what's going to happen in case there are failures in any of these systems.
And it's a lot of complicated equipment in a hospital like this. How have they been able to manage without the engineers? Have there been problems?
It's interesting you ask that. Yes, there have been, and only the employees know firsthand. We have heard out here on the sidewalk some of the problems the hospital has had, and it's really hard to hear about it. But just in the first week, the first time they ran the emergency generator, there was a loss of emergency power for up to 10 minutes. It should be a mere 2 seconds when they test the emergency generator. 2 seconds it takes to transfer from PG&E to emergency power, and they lost power. It's because they had new engineers that were not familiar with the test operating the equipment. Now, all the normal power stayed on, so I'm not saying they lost power in the whole building, but the emergency power system was down longer than it should have been.
And this company, Dignity, who are they?
Dignity Health is a huge corporation. They call themselves, it's a nonprofit corporation. It's one of the largest in the country. Of 35 nonprofits listed, that we have a document here that shows their earnings, they are the number one at $10.5 billion fiscal year ending 2013, June 30th. 10.5, they're the largest. So money is not an issue here as far as settling our contract. What they are is a huge corporation, and they own 3 hospitals in the Bay Area: St. Francis, St. Mary's, Sequoia, and Redwood City. There's a 4th hospital, Dominican, in Santa Cruz. And all 4 of these facilities are on strike right now since October 1st.
So they're spending a lot of money on replacement workers and bringing in other people?
I'm sure they are. They brought people, they had to bring them from out of state. They brought people from across the country to operate the system. And they have people whose resumes they got off the internet, monsterjobs.com for one of them. I'm not sure where everybody came from, but they have resumes that say they are mechanical people. They know how to operate boilers. But it takes a long time to understand the systems that they're operating, and that's really the problem here. When we have a new engineer come on duty, we train them. It takes 3 months before you allow an engineer to stand watch alone.
And what would this impact have if they're successful on other engineers? You have master contracts for hospitals, hotels. How would it affect other engineers?
Well, if you take and you lower the industry standard for wages and benefits in one area, it's going to have an effect that's going to go through the industry. You know, one person's going to say, hey, we can do it there, we'll do it somewhere else. But the biggest problem, the reason we have to stand strong and not take a lesser contract is for these hospitals because they will lose their experienced engineers. I will not be able to keep my crew. If they can go down the street and earn more money, they're not going to stay here. And so some engineers have already left because of the length of the strike. It's been, we're in our 9th week now, like I said before. Some engineers have left. I know there's been some have left Sequoia Hospital, St. Mary's. We have lost one who's taken another job here, and everyone else is working on their resumes.
Well, are you getting strike payments?
We do. The local is great. They give us $300 a week for picket duty, and what we're getting more than the strike payments is the support from the hospital staff here in the hospital. And I don't mean just the staff, but not only union workers, but non-union staff, but even managers and supervisors. They know, they see firsthand what's happening to the hospital, and they hate to see us out here. So we are getting, they bring us coffee, bring us food, people are baking snacks and other gifts, and that's really the biggest support we get on the strike line.
So these executives who forced you out, you said that they are making a lot of money. I mean, what are the executives of Dignity Healthcare?
I know the CEO, the chief executive, Lloyd Dean, raked in $5.1 million fiscal year June 30th. Those are stats we have. That comes out to about $325,000 a month. Okay, now that's the man at the top.
Dean, they're pointing him out. He is actually the Dignity Healthcare CEO. And as I said, you can call him at 415-438-5500 and give him your views about this ongoing work stoppage and strike. We're really fortunate to have Nancy Abbey with us. Nancy is the chair of the People's Democratic Club. So Nancy, welcome for the second half of the show. And Nora, you had something to add about our earlier conversation.
You know, Jeff reminded me that when we think about 15 of these skilled technical workers being out on strike from the local Dominican hospital, Dominican has only hired 3 temporary workers to replace them.
Oh my goodness.
So you have a crew of 15 that normally works, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, at least 8 hours a day. There's a lot of overtime and callback involved in this kind of work. But, the hospital, I mean, they only have to pay 65 of these guys to begin with, but they've only replaced them with 3. So, how it is that whoever these 3 are, scabs that are crossing a picket line to work, who knows what they know how to do.
Well, they flew in from Detroit, I understand.
Well.
I mean, and that was my concern, whether or not it was going to be Dr. Jones who was fiddling with the electrocardiogram and he was tapping into my chest. Nancy, again, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what's happening out there from your perspective.
When Nora mentioned bringing in these 3 temporary workers, there was a story early on. These engineers, every job is so technical. Everything in that hospital takes somebody who's really knowledgeable.
Remarkable.
Even changing a light bulb. There was a story that they were trying to change a light bulb in an operating room or some specific room, and these scabs didn't know how to do it.
There are
one of the nurses finally had to get up on the ladder or something and change it.
Is there a joke in there about how many scabs it takes to change a light bulb?
Apparently none.
Apparently there's no joke about that at all, right?
I did learn early on, walking the picket line, that there are about 400 different kinds of light bulbs used every day in a hospital setting.
I have no doubt of it.
So, the joke about how many whatevers it takes to change a light bulb, how many people does it take to actually understand light bulbs in the variety of equipment and rooms that are being used?
And it really, I think, illustrates the point of how essential these services are and how the absence of these services impacts the level of medical care that we in this community are getting and can expect. But Nancy, tell us a little bit about what's going on out there from the PDC's perspective.
Well, we have been out there now for about 6 weeks. I think the strike had been on for 2 weeks before we recognized that it was something that we needed to do. And so every Wednesday from 3 to 5, some of us are out there. It's, you know, it's not a mob. I wish there were more people. We invite anybody in the community to join us at that time between 3 and 5 on Wednesdays, or for an hour anytime between sunrise and sunset.
Any day of
because
the
they're
week.
out there every day, even weekends, and weekends are really tough for them too. But I'm amazed by these guys. They've become my heroes because they're out there and they, you know, it's been so long and yet they're still there. They're taking side jobs because they, you know, can't live on the strike pay that they get. But they're people who deserve to be appreciated and to be treated with real dignity because these men are hard workers. And as one man, I think he's an electrician, said he had worked in the hospital for over 20 years. And he said, sometimes I get a call late at night if one of the night workers who isn't quite as trained needs, as you know, some help. And he said, I don't mind taking the call. I don't mind getting up and going to the hospital if I have to, because I've been proud of my job.
Right.
And here he is out on this picket line for 2.5 months because they can't get a contract. It's not even that they're asking for more money. They are asking for a contract and a guaranteed 40-hour work week. Another man has been working there for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know about all the others, you know, but they've just been there for so long.
I mean, they pull longer duty on the picket line than they do when they're working their regular shift. So now you know that there's a serious interruption of home and family life.
Right, of course.
And, you know, the level of, you know, when we talk about morale, you know, the other day, for example, on Saturday, a lot of people showed up on Saturday. It was a big day on the picket line. And
because community people came out.
And that's why it was a big picket line. And when we arrived, after about 10 minutes, we noticed that some of the strikers left because they knew we'd be there for at least an hour. They went and got themselves whatever. They went grocery shopping, they went to pay their bills, they went home to recognize their partners and families. Some of the others actually just physically sat down just so that they could get off their feet after all that time. So, you know, when we talk about this being our picket line, it really is because it's our hospital. We are the consumers there. And these workers are fighting a fight for all of us in a variety of ways, whether we want to talk about it intellectually in terms of, you know, corporate greed and the impact of corporations on our regular lives. We can look at it that way. We can talk about being consumers of healthcare. We can talk about being trade unionists over a period of time in different ways. But, you know, in the end, there's just 15 guys standing up for 12 hours every single day, rain or shine, in this bitter cold, and that ought to matter to everyone.
Well, it should. And from my perspective, that's why I'm so pleased to have Nancy here, and you as well, Nora. This really reflects so well on the People's Democratic Club. I think they have taken the lead in this to support the strikers from the first day. They've been out there, they've been doing this thing, and I don't think they've gotten the acknowledgement, in my mind, that they should, particularly in local press. And I want to make mention of the fact that you passed a resolution with the People's Democratic Club in support of the strikers, and somehow it got a little...
rewritten by the Sentinel?
Written by the Sentinel staff of some kind, and it really didn't come out in the way that it was intended to do as a statement of support. And you have it here, Nancy, and I'd like you to take a minute to read to our viewers this resolution from the PDC in support of the strikers, because I do think that it's a very important statement.
Okay, thank you. And it's the resolution in support of stationary engineers, Local 39, in dispute with Dignity Health. Whereas the members of International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 39, have been on strike since October 1, 2013 at Dominican Hospital to protest working without a contract for over 2 years, and under the threat of the elimination of the guaranteed 40-hour work week. Whereas Dignity Health, the corporate owner of Dominican Hospital, has refused to bargain in good faith with the union. Whereas Dignity Health's continued intransigence on this labor dispute is putting their patients' health at risk, as untrained workers are replacing the highly skilled technicians in the Stationary Engineers Union. Therefore, be it resolved that the People's Democratic Club of Santa Cruz County supports its brothers and sisters of Local 39 in their strike for equitable and fair compensation at Dignity Health facilities. And be it further resolved that the People's Democratic Club of Santa Cruz County asks the management of Dignity Health to resolve this matter swiftly by submitting to binding arbitration as proposed by Local 39 and acting in a manner that is befitting a company that has adopted the word dignity as part of its name. Be it further resolved that the People's Democratic Club of Santa Cruz County asks our state legislators to contact Dignity Health and urge them to resolve this matter as stated above. Authored by the Executive Committee of the People's Democratic Club of Santa Cruz County.
And we thank the People's Democratic Club for that. That's the kind of courageous, principled statement, in my view, that we should be making, in this particular issue. Let me ask you this: has there been any conversation with any of our local electeds, or city, state, county, Sam Farr? Has there been any contact in terms of support for the strikers?
I brought this resolution in a letter to the offices of Monning and Mark Stone, and I'm sending it to Luis Alejo. We just passed this last week, so I got it to their offices. What day is this? Sunday. On
December 8th.
Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. So they haven't had time to respond to it. So we will be contacting them directly.
Is there any plan to maybe try to get the resolution adopted by the Watsonville City Council, Board of Supervisors? Perish the thought that the Santa Cruz City Council would ever take a courageous, principled statement like this. But nevertheless, is that something you believe is important for the community voice?
It's probably worth saying that corporate headquarters is in San Francisco, right? So our challenge, in addition to kind of acting locally, is beginning to think about ways that we can bring some pressure to bear on corporate. Dominican locally has a certain amount of push that it could exert on corporate headquarters. Certainly if the picket lines were big and loud and constant, folks that work at Dominican Hospital would be telling corporate, would you please make those people go away? We're tired of it. But our challenge at this point really is to move towards the Bay Area, where the corporation is housed and where 3 out of 4 of the hospitals are located, right? So I imagine when we talk to both Assembly Member Alejo and Stone, as well as Senator Monning, will be carrying that message. That
all of whom seem to be very supportive of workers' rights.
They're all
in the
endorsed
past.
by
So,
labor.
And we have a few minutes left, but I want to make sure that people can have some contact information from both you and the PDC. And so if they really want to be engaged in this action, I think everybody should be. They should be aware of it. They should be how important it is locally and how much it profoundly affects the quality of life in our community. How can they get a hold of you first, and then we'll get to Nancy, just to make sure we get that information out?
Well, the best way to reach me is to reach me through the PDC.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Our website is www.pdclub.org.
Now, does that have the resolution on it? It's on the website yet? It does? Okay, great. And
Yeah.
you can get it from there.
And there are ways to leave messages
Right.
at that website.
Okay, good.
So I'll get them through there.
And I know that you've tried to organize folks, especially on Wednesdays, as Jeff was mentioning.
Right.
I mean, that would be worth telling folks about.
Wednesdays from 3 to 5. We walk the picket line, and we welcome any community member to join us. But they don't have to. We're trying to encourage people to come on weekends too, so people
Just
who
an
have
hour a
jobs-
weekend.
Yes, just an hour helps.
So, this
But
is,
one of the things I would like to say
please.
is, we've talked about writing letters to the editor, and we have written some letters to the Sentinel. Actually, one was published today. But I think it's really important for people, if they write to the Sentinel, to also write to the Chronicle, so that those letters...
Nora makes a very good point.
Yeah. So those letters can be focused on the corporate headquarters.
Okay. Well, you know, the People's Democratic Club, you know, because I do believe that it is of the people, and that's one of the wonderful things about it, in my view. What are the strikers feeling out there? How are they doing? You know, are they getting through this? Certainly, they need our support, but are they still, you know, keeping a strong front and commitment to this?
It's wearing on them.
Yeah, they're there.
Right.
They're not caving in. There's no striker saying they'll take whatever comes their way from the company. That's not going to happen. But you can see the effect of 2 months of a strike taking its toll. That's why I say, when we were out there in much more force on Saturday, they either sat down physically right away or they took off just so that they could get some time away from the line. So I would say that they're needing some, you know, just some moral support.
Well, Nora Hochman, great to have you here and continue your fine work with the unions and the labor organizing. Nancy, thank you for your work with the PDC under your leadership. I think that we can expect great things from them. And I will say that really nothing galvanizes an action like this than having the community come and support you. You know, if there's any, you know, flagging energies out there, those folks should know that the community is going to come and support them. If people from here, people watching this show, will be able to come out and do everything they can to support what I think is a very, very important community issue. So on the behalf of Charlie Phillips, our producer, and the folks in the engineering room who've done such a wonderful job, thanks again to my guests, Nora Hochman and Nancy Abbey. I'm Steve Plach, and thank you for watching this segment of Voices from the Village, and do support Local 39 at Dominican Hospital. It's the right thing to do. Thanks so much, and good night. Yeah,